Hello everybody and welcome to another puzzle challenge video with chessuniversity.com. This is Ryan Murphy presenting today's puzzle, and since we're at the start of a new week, we've moved back to our beginner level puzzles. But before we get to today's fresh puzzle, I want to go over the solution to the difficult puzzle that was at the end of the last week or yesterday. And this was the Shankland game in the Maroczy bind. And here it's black to play and win. If you want to try to solve this and you didn't see the previous video, take a moment to pause now and try to find the best move for black. There's a couple different cool continuations, but I'm going to continue and show the solution now. So the nice move, which was played in the game, is knight captures e4, and it basically takes advantage of the fact that the bishop on d3 is doing too many jobs. It's defending too many weak pawns, and it has to pick between one or the other. And the problem for white is after they take this knight, now the rook comes in, attacking the bishop, and it's very difficult for white to pick a good score for the bishop. So, for example, in the game, the move bishop f3 was played, and then after rook d4, this knight was falling, because now it's under attack twice, and the queen's got to move. It was also possible for white to put the bishop on d3, but then, of course, you would just take the knight, and you'd end up here with exchange down for black, but two center pawns for that exchange, and taking into account that white also cannot castle safely on the king side. So this is already a dominating position for black, even though this was the best that white could have hoped for in the game. As I said, after bishop f3, rook d4, black was simply up material with a great position to go along with it. So black won pretty smoothly from there. And with that one shown, we can now move on to our new puzzle, which in this position is white to play and win. White's already doing a pretty good job here, but there's a simple tactic available. So hopefully you guys will find that one, and I'm going to go through the rest of this game to show how we reached this position. Like I said, it's white to play their 33rd move. So okay, and there's only one move here that's winning for white, but it's a thematic tactic. And this was played on chess.com between a 2200 and a almost 2600. So two very strong players, and it began like this. Black trying to go for a Benoni, which is exactly what happens. This pawn structure where black has pawns on d6 and c5 against the d5 pawn is the Benoni, the modern Benoni pawn structure. And white's going to fianchetto the bishop. So both sides will do a kingside fianchetto. And this is one of the very popular lines. In this position, black opts for the move knight to a6, which is a typical plan. One of the ideas is to either go knight b4 at some moment, or in some cases to go knight to c7 and then help prepare the move b5 with the knight on c7 later. Because expanding with these pawns over on the queen side is one of black's major ideas. The other is to move the knight from f6 and play f5 and attack on the king side. So, okay. But instead of that, or I should say that's what black did. Instead of that, they could have played a different line with knight e4, which tries to target this knight on c3 with two pieces, and if the trade occurs, after the knight goes to d2, which is the most aggressive move to challenge the rook, and then try to post the knight on c4 to attack this weak pawn on d6, black has this interesting and reasonable option of sacrificing the exchange to get the unopposed dark squared bishop, and there's, I think, quite a few games here, and black has reasonable practical chances. But anyway, yeah, black went for a slower approach here with knight a6, or I should say like a less direct approach. So now black challenges the bishop on f4 to try to relieve the pressure against that d6 pawn. So the bishop drops back, and now bishop to d7 is played. It's somewhat tempting to look at the move rook takes e3, which is a thematic type of sacrifice in this position, just to ruin white's king side and, well, basically mean that forever if black lands a knight on e5, it's not going to be easy to remove. So this is an interesting way to play, but it's by no means like the only way for black to play, nor is it even probably the best. It's just interesting. Bishop b7 is much calmer. Just sort of trying to get ready to play the move b5, basically. So pretty simple move. But the downside to this is if white were to now play knight c4, it would actually be really awkward for black because the pawn would be hanging, and like b5 doesn't work because knight takes d6. So bishop d7 would have been a bit awkward had white played knight c4 here. But white played a4, which is also good, preventing b5. So just kind of stopping black's idea. Knight b4 now. Knight to c4, hitting the pawn. Queen to c7. bishop to f3, challenging this knight on the rim. In some cases, white is definitely thinking about taking this thing and ruining the pawn structure. And now white's just ganging up against this pawn on d6. Now, this might be familiar to a lot of people because at an earlier point in our puzzle challenge series, we looked at the position here, where it was white to play and win. And I can't remember what number puzzle challenge it was, but the correct and strongest move here was rook takes e5. I think this was a medium or a difficult puzzle, so later on in the week. And this would have been winning for white, because if rook takes e5, there's a fork, and you win the knight. And if the queen tries to move, you can basically chase the queen no matter where it goes. So for example, if queen c8, you have this, and then the queen's going to be lined up with the bishop, either on this square or on this square, doesn't matter. And then you have the discovered attack, which wins. So anyway, that wasn't played. Bishop takes e5 was played in the game. And now we're actually picking up sort of where we left off in a previous puzzle challenge. So this position is just absolute utter chaos, as a lot of Benoni's tend to be. But white has really good practical chances because this d-pawn's often very annoying, pushing down the board. But we're going to fast forward a bit here. White is winning here if they continue to play well. Yeah, that's quite a move. Queen takes c4. And the whole point of it is that if bishop takes c4, the rook has the eyes all the way across to h3 to take the queen on h3. So very fancy move. The problem, though, is after bishop takes a3, it's a bit awkward, because now, well, the queen is hanging, it has to move. So it does. Bishop to b4, which was a blunder. In this position, if the bishop goes back to, say, I don't know, I think d6 is actually the best square, then black is actually just winning. So if we count the pieces, black's doing pretty well, not to mention, of course, that there's also big problems with this king over here. In the current position, it looks like white can play pawn takes knight, but that would actually lead to a forced checkmate with a very familiar mating pattern that looks like this. It's a good one to know. That was completely forced. Every move was a check. Yeah, so bishop d6 would be completely winning, but after bishop b4, it is actually white who has the advantage if they find the move of the day. So hopefully you guys will spot it, and if you want to post your solution to get credit on your Chess University account, check out the official link at the description of this YouTube video, and you can go over there and post your solution. So thanks for checking this one out, and I'll see everyone tomorrow for another puzzle challenge video.